From DSN's Wawa Studios, this is Down and Distance.
Hey sports fans, welcome into the final Down and Distance right here on the Delmarva Sports Network. Kayla Santiago with you all. We have a ton to get to tonight, from our game of the night to power rankings and so much more action from the gridiron. But before we get into our game of the night, I'd like to welcome in our very own Darren Wallace, and we've got round 2 of Maryland playoffs on DSN Live tonight.
Yes, the Tribe taking on Gwynn Park from across the bridge. 2 very evenly matched teams. I'm excited to see how it all shakes out.
And it is a second round battle, a Class 2A in the MPSSAA playoffs. The Gwynn Park Yellow Jackets and the Y-High Tribe. We're going to start with the visitors, Darren. A lot of fans on the peninsula might not know about this team, so what can we tell them?
Well, this isn't the first time the Yellow Jackets are playing a team from Salisbury. They played Parkside a week ago and dismantled them 44-18. Quarterback William Butler threw for over 200 yards, had 4 total touchdowns, 3 on the air, 1 on the ground, and their senior back, Rashid Howard, dominated, ran for over 160 yards, had 2 scores of his own. It's an all-around team with a bunch of weapons, but I talked to head coach Freddie Ford earlier this week, and he said their quarterback does so much for them.
Yeah, let's see what he has to say about QB1 playing on the road.
Man, as he go, we go. You know what I mean? As he go, we go. He's just like our leader. He's one of our leaders. But he's just a junior. He's not a captain, but he's a leader, if you understand what I mean. Yeah, he's a quiet kid. He's a quiet kid, but guys feed off of him, you know? Yeah. And he's real mature, real calm. And I think baseball has helped him with that in terms of, you know, a lot of times baseball players are real mild-mannered in terms of, you know, baseball is kind of like a slow-down game. So sometimes if something's not there, he'll say, guys, just have patience. It's gonna happen.
So that's all we have for the Yellow Jackets. Let's get into the home team. What does Y-High have to do to try to move on in the Maryland State playoffs?
Well, Kayla, we should expect a Y-High team that's going to air the ball out like they've been doing all season and playing really good defense. Last week, they cruised past Fairmont Heights 41-14. Didn't take long for the offense to heat up in that one. The Tribe stormed out of the gates offensively. Landon Roach connected with the former quarterback, Jonathan Grady, for a 40-yard touchdown. It was a 41-0 score at halftime. Yes, I didn't stutter, 41-0. And after that, they just cruised in the second half, of course, with that running clock. And Coach Matt McMurdo was emphasizing how Landon Roach has improved since that Easton game, and he'll be important in this playoff matchup.
Yeah, and let's see what he has to say about Landon Roach, who's been great all year, but he's going to have to be put to the test here tonight.
He's the type of kid who, you know, he's on a Zoom meeting tonight right now with Coach Urson. They're on a Zoom meeting right now. He's a student of the game, so like when he makes mistakes, I know it's not a what did coach call that play for, or what's going on. I know he's going to take ownership of that mistake. He's going to figure out why he did it, and he's going to figure out how to fix it, right? Whether that's either through coming to us and getting coached up on it or figuring it out. But, you know, it's just the quarterback position is insane, man. There's so much to it.
So that's what Coach McMurdo had to say. Before we go to break, let's take a look at how you, the fans, think this game will play out tonight.
Yeah, it's looking like a lot of you hometown fans are, of course, pulling for the home team. 87-13 should be a good one. These coaches say that playing each other is going to be like looking in the mirror.
Looking forward to it at County Stadium. Thank you all so much for participating. And be sure to check in on our socials for more polls. And if you want your vote to be counted, head over to DelmarvaSportsNetwork.com. Click the Sports Poll tab to make sure your voice is heard. Remember, this game starts tonight at 6 p.m. right here on the Delmarva Sports Network. We'll be right back after the break.
Welcome back to Down and Distance.
We talked about our game of the night, but in case you can't make it to Salisbury, let's take a look at some other games you can get out to see. I welcome in DSN's Tyler Aiken. Tyler, let's start with the Bayside. Which game should people be on the lookout for tonight in Maryland?
Well, let's head across the bridge for this heavyweight matchup. Stephen Decatur hits the road to face Guilford Park out of Jessup. One of these two teams is going to have their win streak snapped tonight. Let's start with Stephen Decatur, who has won 8 games in a row, stormed out of the gates in their 3A playoff debut. The Seahawks dismantled Reservoir 42-12 last Friday, rushed for nearly 200 yards and 4 touchdowns as a team led by Kyle Mumford and Vernon DeShields, who ran for a 64-yard tutty. This was the 4th time all season where the Seahawks defense allowed fewer than 15 points in a game, in the third straight game of putting up at least 35 on the offensive end. But the home team, who's in just its second season as a varsity program, Guilford Park, is 10-0 on the year, and it's been one of the top teams in the state, averaging 38 points per game and only giving up a little under 14 per game on the defensive side of things. So if Stephen Decatur wants to pull off the upset, it has to try to stop the leading rusher of Guilford Park, Tyler Lee. The junior is averaging nearly 200 rushing yards per game and has rushed for over 200 yards in 6 of those contests on the year. Over half of the season, there's only one game where he didn't at least cross the century mark. So kickoff tonight is at 6 o'clock. Can Stephen Decatur win on the road when it matters most, get the three-peat of state championships? We'll just have to wait and see.
That we will. It's a tough road to get to that final in 3A. We'll see if Stephen Decatur can get there. That's what we have for the B-side. Now for all of you Henlopen fans in Delaware, we head up Route 13.
It is a Week 7 rematch tonight with a trip to the semifinals on the line. Caesar Rodney against Smyrna. Caesar Rodney out for revenge after losing this matchup earlier in the season, but since that moment, the Riders have been on a different level with 3 straight wins. They've also put up over 35 points per game in all of those in that stretch. If there's anyone that's not afraid to go on the road and beat the Eagles, it's the Riders, and Tatnall transfer quarterback Quinn DeVere and his dynamic connection to Denzel Jones should help with that. But the home team, the Eagles, have been one of the hottest teams up in Delaware as of late. They most recently took care of business against Sussex Central to lock up the second seed in 3A. But it's the play of quarterback Drew Marks that really has Smyrna surging, as its offense is putting up over 40 a game in that last 5-game span. Smyrna is looking to win a playoff game for the first time since 2022, but that was a championship season. So kickoff up in Smyrna at 7 o'clock. The winner takes on the winner of Cape Henlopen versus Salesianum in the state semis.
That is a matchup we can't wait to see, but that's not all. There's plenty of other action from the Gridiron tonight from our local teams on the peninsula. Starting in the MPSSAA second round, CSD takes a trip up north to face Perryville. The Vikings have been red hot, winning 3 of their last 4 and most recently upsetting Colonel Richardson on the road 27-26.
Another Maryland playoff game also across the bridge. Washington takes on Patuxent. Last week, Washington defeated Snow Hill 22-8 to win its first playoff game since 2003. The Jaguars in need of another road upset to keep the year alive.
In the opening round of the DIAA playoffs, we got a matchup between Odessa and undefeated Indian River. Last week, Indian River came back from a 14-0 halftime deficit to stun Lake Forest in a game that came down to the wire. Syracuse commit Darnell Stokes had 3 touchdowns, including the game winner to win the 2A district and lock up the top seed.
Later tonight, Glasgow makes the trip down to Seaford, and Seaford has had one of the biggest turnarounds in the state from last season to this year. Last season, 2-8 finish. This year, 9-1 in the regular season. First trip to the playoffs in 3 years, and the Jays recently defeated Early College High School and St. Andrews on a forfeit.
And that one loss comes from Indian River, by the way, who's a 2A team. Last but not least, Archmere makes the trip to Felton to take on Lake Forest tomorrow. The Spartans suffer their first loss of the season to Indian River 27-21 that we alluded to earlier on. This is the second time these 2 teams meet this year, with the Spartans defeating the Ox 35-13, but Archmere is 5-1 since suffering that loss. So this is a much different team than the Spartans saw previously. Kickoff is tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Those are all surely going to be fantastic games to get out and watch. And if you can't be there, make sure to tune in to the final score tonight to see which teams came out with the win. We'll be right back with more Down and Distance after the break.
Welcome back to Down and Distance.
So now that we've discussed all the top games in the area for the weekend, let's get into some of the top players to watch. We're going to start things off in the Bayside. Our first player to watch comes from Berlin and Stephen Decatur's quarterback, Johnny Hobgood. Hobgood has been efficient all year long in the win over Reservoir. He only completed 9 passes total, but he threw for 2 touchdowns and ran in 1. He's only turned the ball over 3 times all season. He knows how to be smart, and he's ready to step up big for this road playoff game. So that's our Bayside player to watch. Let's move on to the Henlopen Conference. There are a ton of talented players to choose from, but we'll head over to Smyrna. It's quarterback Drew Marks. He is our Delaware player to watch. The junior couldn't heat up at a better time. The huge win over Dover. Marks exploded for 6 touchdowns and over 280 yards. Did we forget to mention that he only threw 3 incompletions? Marks has now thrown for 11 touchdowns and 5 incompletions in the last 2 weeks. He's looking to keep his hot streak moving as he eyes a 3A state title returning to Smyrna. So those are the players we feel are going to have big games tonight. Be sure to tune in to the final score at 11 to see how they performed, and good luck to all the athletes taking the field tonight. We'll be right back after the break.
Welcome back to Down and Distance.
We just finished unveiling our players to watch from both Maryland and Delaware, but now it's time for us to jump into our top plays and players from Week 10. I welcome in DSN's Ian Nicholas to the set. Now, Ian, we had a ton of great plays from the Gridiron, so let's not waste any time. Kicking things off at number 5, Colton Starlings is in the zone, moves to his left, threading the needle, off balance, on the run, diving catch from Amari Baynard. What a throw, what a catch, what a victory for the Lions.
And what a season for Starlings. Crazy, he's only a sophomore. Let's go to play number 4, where the Laurel Bulldogs started off hot. Shakai Parker with a little bit of a muff at the start of the kickoff. It didn't delay him for the rest of it. He runs it all the way to the house, weaving through everybody on Delmar and finding his way into the end zone by the skin of his teeth, getting wrestled in for 6. What an effort from Parker.
Moving up a class to 3A at number 3, Jamison Tingle passing the rock to Cordell Richards, and he will do the rest, not being told no, and trots his way into the end zone. That was a go-ahead victory for them. They were able to go ahead on that play and eventually come out with the win.
How many times have those two found each other for scores over the years? At number 2, Easton. Well, they had, a little bit of a fight in their game as well, and this one ricocheting off of an Easton player into the hands of a Hammond player. Timothy Costa with the INT. Hammond wouldn't end up winning coming from across the bridge, but they did have a couple of highlight reel plays in the playoff loss.
And our sweetest play from last week, clock ticking down. Indian River's Darnell Stokes bulldozes his way into the end zone for his 3rd touchdown of the night. IR clinched the district and improved to 10-0 with the win over Lake Forest. So those are our top plays from the Gridiron. Now let's take a look at our top performances for our Special Teams Player of the Week. Ian, who is bringing the award home?
Kayla, this week had to give it to a Lake Forest player, A.J. White, who ran a kick nearly 90 yards back to the house. It was in that same Indian River game that we just saw. It was right before Stokes had the game-winning touchdown. But this got Lake Forest back in the game. His team looked dead in the water, and White, who was battling injury in the second half, emerging from that dog pile, running it into the end zone. A.J. White, you are our Special Teams Player of the Week.
Now let's take a look at our Defensive Player of the Week. Who will it go to here?
Well, for the 2nd week in a row, we're giving it to a QAC defensive player. And this time, it's DB Carter Dickey, who was a takeaway machine last week. He had 2 INTs, 3 tackles, gave the Lions multiple extra possessions. And like we saw Starlings earlier in the show, they dominated with those extra drives. Congrats to Dickey on being our Defensive Player of the Week.
And, of course, we have to name our Offensive Player of the Week. It was hard to make the decision here, but Ian, who is taking home this award?
It might be difficult, but it's deserving, as we had 5 or more players that we were working through, and well, we ended up giving it to Landon Erb. Nope, I'm just joking. While Erb had over 150 yards, it was Darnell Stokes, who, like you saw, 3 touchdowns. The winner, they used him out of a backfield as they had an injured player, and he stepped up big time for 16 carries, 140 yards. still did his thing as a receiver. He's committed to Syracuse to play receiver. 4 catches for over 40 through the air. Truly a Herculean. I know who Hercules is, don't worry. And that's why he's our Offensive Player of the Week.
Congratulations to our 3 players of the week, and good luck to all the athletes playing tonight. Make sure all you fans at home tune into the final score tonight at 11 p.m. to see which players make an impact on their games tonight. Stick with us, because when we return, we'll have those final power rankings of the season. Who will be crowned number 1 for the last time? You'll just have to wait and find out. It's time, football fans. But before we get into the final rankings of the season, let's explain how our algorithm works.
A team loses 2 points if it loses to a team with a losing record. A team receives no points for losing to a team that is 500 or better. You get 1 point for beating a team with a losing record, and 3 points for beating a team that is 500 or above.
A squad receives an additional 1 point for a road win. A team will receive an additional 2 if the win is over a DSN top 5 ranked team. In the event there is a tiebreaker, the team with the higher margin of victory will get the higher seed. If 2 teams have the same margin of victory, the team with more points scored on the season will get the higher seed.
As for the class rules, the team receives 0 points for defeating a Class 1A team, 1 point for defeating a Class 2A team, 2 points for defeating a Class 3A team or better.
If a squad loses to a team in their class or higher, they will lose 0 points. If a 2A team loses to a 1A team, they will lose 2. If a 3A team loses to a 2A team, they will lose 2 points. If a 3A team loses to a 1A squad, they will lose 4. And we have to mention that any game played after last week will not count towards these rankings. Now with that, let's get into our Bayside rankings. Coming in at number 5 to end the year, it's the Colonel Richardson Colonels. They wrapped up the regular season with 19 DSN points.
The Colonels did have their 7-game win streak snapped, though, ended at the hands of Cambridge South Dorchester in the first round of the playoffs. But even with that loss, it was a successful year for Colonel Richardson, a 7-3 record, a championship in the Class 1A Bayside division, but they finished top 5 in our rankings for the season.
That they did. Moving on to number 4, it's Queen Anne's County staying in the same spot. They've got 24 DSN points.
Queen Anne's County won its playoff game against Southern and Arundel last week in dominant fashion, up 45-zip at halftime. Didn't even need to play the second half, and the Bulldogs put points on the board over and over again, but the game was just out of reach towards the end of that one.
Yeah, that it was. Coming in at number 3, we'll see them tonight. It's those Y-High Tribe. They finished with 25 DSN points on the season.
The Tribe, another team that just ran away with a victory last week with a win over Fairmont Heights, 41-14, and it was 41-0 at halftime in that one. Some garbage time scores to cut into the deficit, but it didn't change anything. So Y-High Gwynn Park tonight with a chance to advance to the regional finals. But they do finish out the final week of power rankings. Y-High top 3.
That they are. Moving on to our number 2 spot, Easton Warriors. They finished with 30 DSN points.
Easton was in complete control over the Golden Bears of Hammond last week, and the win was enough to get it done with the entire team. Kyrie Akery did stand out above the rest. He had 3 touchdowns, all of which came in the first half. That gave Easton a huge cushion. It didn't give up, and the Warriors were the only Bayside playoff team to finish the game with a shutout last week, and they finished the regular season at number 2 in our rankings.
But our top spot on the list, finishing the season where they started it, it's the Stephen Decatur Seahawks. They earned 32 DSN points on the year.
Stumbled a little bit early in the season, but now back at the top. Stephen Decatur is actually the only team in the top 5 of our rankings that finished in that exact same spot as the beginning of the season. The Seahawks put on a dominant performance in their first playoff game as a 3A team. Stephen Decatur held Reservoir scoreless until the second half. And again, just like these last few teams, a total team performance from kickoff. But Decatur now takes the trip over to Jessup, Maryland to battle Guilford Park, who not only is playing in their second season as a football program They're also undefeated on the year. 10-0 should be a great one.
That it should. Now let's take a look at the full top 5 rankings just to recap for one final time. As you can see, we have the same 5 faces from last week. All of those teams are also in the same spots. Now that we've wrapped up the Bayside, let's switch over to the Henlopen Conference, where we will see the most changes. The 1A District 3 champions dropped down a few spots. They're at number 5 with 25 DSN points.
The Seaford Blue Jays did get to enjoy a week off after St. Andrews forfeited the regular season finale, and the Blue Jays had already clinched the district title prior to the forfeit. But the game did determine seedings for the playoffs. The Blue Jays earned the 2 seed in the tournament, which means their side of the bracket has to play through Seaford until the state championship game. It hosts 5-5 Glasgow tonight. Should be a win for the Blue Jays, but you never know in Delaware football.
That you don't. Playoffs are a different monster. Coming in at number 4 are the 3A District 2 champions and the Smyrna Eagles. They finished the season with 26 DSN points.
I'm sure Smyrna wished it was higher, but all the Eagles care about is that shootout win over Sussex Central last week. And that did end the Golden Knights' slim playoff hopes. As for the Eagles, they clinched the district title, the 2 seed in the tournament prior to last week's game. They were just playing for pride. But the win did already bolster that impressive resume for Smyrna. The Eagles now have a rematch with the next team on our power rankings tonight in what was a 5-point close victory in favor of Smyrna last time.
That it was. Moving on at number 3, it's the Caesar Rodney Riders. They also have 26 DSN points, earning the tiebreaker over the Eagles.
Caesar Rodney gets the tiebreaker due to margin of victory. Won that tiebreaker by more than 60 points, so they have the number 3 spot on our final power rankings. The Riders clinched the 7 seed following their shutout win over Dover last week. That performance, and even the performance the week before against Cape Henlopen, is what it looks like when the Riders play complementary football. So they take on Smyrna. That should be a great one, just like it was a few weeks ago.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing that on our show tonight. Now for the number 2 spot on our list, dropping down a spot, it's the Lake Forest Spartans. They finished with 39 DSN points.
Dropping down to number 2, but still such a strong team. Down out of the top spot for the first time since week 4. That week, the Riders owned the number 1 spot, and Lake fought from start to finish, but couldn't move the ball in the second half against Indian River. So that lost Lake's first of the season, a tough one, but they're the 4 seed in the Class 2A playoffs. A win tomorrow afternoon, and then a chance for revenge in Dagsboro as long as Indian River holds up against Odessa tonight.
Now for our top spot, they overtook the Spartans after their win last week. It's the Indian River Indians. They've got 39 DSN points, but they also are in the tiebreaker over the Spartans.
First year in 2A, and still taking care of business. Narrow tiebreaker win over Lake Forest by 12 points. But they've played like one of the best teams in Delaware all year long. And even when they were down their star running back, Devon Handy, they called on Darnell Stokes, they called on Landon Erb, they called on their star quarterback, and they were able to come back from down 14-0 at the half. So the Indians clinched the division, clinched the 1 seed. So the playoffs do run through Dagsboro, and it hosts number 3 Odessa. 7-3 Odessa, pardon me. That should be a good one.
Yeah, that should be as well. Thank you, Tyler, so much. Now for one final time, here are the complete rankings. Same 5 teams as last week, all in different places. You can find the rest of the top 10 rankings on our social media channels at Delmarva Sports and the full list on our website at DelmarvaSportsNetwork.com. And that's all the time we have on the final edition of Down and Distance for the 2025 football season. Remember, if your team wasn't mentioned and you want to find where they stand in the DSN Power Rankings, you can find the full standings on our social page at Delmarva Sports Network and on our website with a full article explaining the standings in detail. Don't forget to join us tonight on the Final Score at 11 p.m. for highlights and recaps of all the action around the peninsula.